TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. The murderous Islamist terror group Hamas announced that it will release the bodies of the Bibas family following 503 days of captivity, during the course of which Shiri, Ariel, and baby Kfir were murdered. Israeli residents of northern Israel voiced concern over returning to their respective communities following the IDF's withdrawal from Lebanon. Israel will agree to enter the second stage of the deal with Hamas, conditioned on the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip and the removal of Hamas and other terrorist organizations from the terror-ridden enclave. The Islamist Hamas terror organization announced that as part of the outline of the US, Qatari, and Egyptian brokered agreement with Israel, it will release the bodies of 4 hostages who were murdered in captivity, to include Shiri Bibas and her 2 little toddlers, Ariel and Kfir.
The movement and the resistance has decided the following. First, to hand in 4 bodies of the occupation hostages on Thursday, February 20th, including bodies from Bibas' family.
The leader of the murderous terror organization continued by also confirming that the Islamist Hamas would release an additional 6 living hostages on Saturday, including Elia Cohen, Omer Shem Tov, Omer Venkert, and Tal Shoham, who were all kidnapped on October 7th of 2023. The 2 additional living hostages include Hisham el-Sayed, a Bedouin Arab who crossed the border from Israel into the Gaza Strip on his own volition roughly 10 years ago, and Avera Mengistu, an Israeli of Ethiopian descent who also entered Gaza on his own accord approximately 11 years ago.
To release next Saturday, February 22nd, the remaining alive hostages of the occupation agreed on their release in the first phase, and their number is 6, including hostages Hisham al-Sayed and Avera Mengistu.
It is important to know that Hamas is eagerly pushing for starting indirect negotiations with Israel on the second phase of the hostage release deal's outline, with our patrons in Qatar spearheading a concentrated effort on the matter.
We are working towards implementing the agreement as it was signed, which means that by the 42nd day we hope that we can move to the second phase. Obviously the negotiations over the second phase have not yet started, and we are pushing with our partners in the mediation to make sure that they start as soon as possible, in order for us to have enough time to discuss them before the proposed end of phase 1.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has decided that negotiations on the second stage of the agreement with Hamas will start at the beginning of next week. The Prime Minister informed Jerusalem's security cabinet ministers of his decision and pledged to hold a discussion on the second stage before the talks begin. In parallel with the commencement of negotiations, Israel will try to extend the first stage and to secure the release of additional living hostages. It is important to highlight that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Security Cabinet have conditioned their consent to the second stage on the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip and the removal of Hamas and other terrorist organizations from the territory, a position that was emphasized by the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar.
We will begin negotiations on second phase of the hostage deal. Israel is committed to our goal to ensure the release of all our hostages. We also committed to all the objectives of the wars were decided by the Security Cabinet. We demand complete demilitarization of Gaza. We will not accept the continued presence of Hamas or any other terrorist groups in Gaza.
Jerusalem's top diplomat, who made these remarks to the Foreign Press Corps in Israel, further stressed in response to a question on a prospective proposal by Arab states on the day after for the Gaza Strip that the Palestinian Authority would not replace Hamas as the governing body of the terror-ridden enclave.
If the plan, for example, if the plan is example, transferring the control from the civil control from Hamas to PA and the continuation of the presence of terror organizations there, according to the Hezbollah model of Lebanon, it is totally unacceptable if it is the plan. But we'll see what it will be.
Foreign Minister Sahl went on to address the ceasefire in Lebanon, highlighting that Iran has been excessively active in trying to rehabilitate its Lebanese proxy Hezbollah.
Iran is making huge efforts to restore Hezbollah by financial support. Part of this is being done with the cooperation of Turkey. If Hezbollah is restored as the dominant military and economic force, Lebanon will remain under Iranian occupation and without a future.
Amid repeated Hezbollah violations of the ceasefire and in light of the Lebanese armed forces essentially lagging behind the outlined scheduled deployments, the United States consented to IDF troops remaining in 5 strategic positions in southern Lebanon, which were labeled as crucial for the defense of Israel's civilian communities along the northern border. However, Hezbollah lawmakers have been voicing outrage over the 5 IDF positions, pledging to resist Israel's presence.
This border town, the town of Yaroun, was liberated, along with it the town of Maroon, as well as the rest of the villages that were occupied, but the Israeli enemy still occupies Lebanese land. And this Lebanese land must be liberated, and now the primary responsibility falls on the Lebanese state and on the government.
The Hezbollah lawmaker further called on the Lebanese government to help rebuilding the residential buildings that were struck, conveniently stopping short from pointing out that the destroyed structures were targeted after Hezbollah utilized those civilian homes for military purposes.
People of the South will work to rebuild villages and towns, and this process is the responsibility of the Lebanese government. And we call on it from here to declare a state of emergency in order to take all the necessary steps to remove the rubble and to reconstruct in order to assist people in returning to their homes and villages.
Meanwhile, following the IDF's withdrawal from Lebanon, Israel deployed the relatively large number of forces to dozens of military outposts that were erected after October 7, 2023, as part of a buffer between Lebanon and Israel's civilian communities. Nevertheless, displaced residents of border communities along the front line have yet to gain a sense of security.
Our heart is still here. Although we had to evacuate, our heart stayed here, and me and my girlfriend really want to come back here because this is where our story began. So we really want to come back, but there is a big uncertainty around all of this return because we don't know when it will be safe and when the civilian structures will be rebuilt. So we want to return, but we don't know when because we don't have enough information because the government isn't publishing information in a good manner that will explain all this complicated situation. And of course, the ceasefire with Lebanon is not ideal. It doesn't give us the full meaning of peace. And there is still, I'm still afraid. I still have my concerns. But I believe that things will not be as they were before.
For the meantime, I'm not feeling safe. Most of the people are not feeling safe because nobody knows what's happened. Now the army left Lebanon. So people, I think, will wait to see what you got in the border.
Turning to the United Nations headquarters in New York, where Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi addressed the UN Security Council, during the course of which he seemingly sought to divert attention from the Ukraine-Russia war to the situation in the Gaza Strip, insisting that the terror-ridden territory alongside the so-called West Bank are the homeland of the Palestinian people and not a bargaining chip in political trade-offs.
Although maybe the most attention is paid on the Ukraine issue currently, we must realize that in our world today there is not just the Ukraine issue. There are also many other hotspots, including the crisis in Gaza, which also require attention from the international community. And these issues must not be marginalized. Gaza and the West Bank are the homeland of the Palestinian people, not a bargaining chip in political trade-offs. The Palestinians governing Palestine is an important principle that must be followed in the post-conflict governance of Gaza. It is vital to uphold the two-state solution, press for a comprehensive, just and lasting settlement of the Palestinian question, and bring lasting peace and security to the Middle East.
Beijing's top diplomat evidently alluded to speculations that the United States would seek to pursue some type of package deal that relates to Russia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the Palestinian question, among others. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. It is important to highlight that TV7 Israel is a non-profit with all of our productions exclusively reliant on the generosity of our viewers. Therefore, if you're blessed by the content of our programs, I would like to encourage you to support TV7 Israel with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, I'd like also to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Mevorach. God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.